Hi everybody! If you've been watching my videos recently, you will know that this is my second doll's house renovation after working on a Tudor doll's house for over a year. And this is part 4, so if you're new to the channel, welcome to my channel. You've not missed much and there is a little playlist so you will be able to catch up. So my plan for this doll's house is to put an art gallery on the bottom floor, and then I had planned to have 2 separate apartments on these floors above. I've already removed the staircases because I was going to build an external staircase to access the 2 flats. But there's a couple of reasons why I think that this won't work. So the first is that each flat would have quite a big bathroom, but then all of the other living accommodation, so the kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, would all have to be in one room. And so this wouldn't be quite right with such a big bathroom. On top of that, with accessing the staircase from the left-hand side of the doll's house, that means that the entrance door would go through the bathroom, which isn't ideal. The staircase needs to be on the left-hand side of the doll's house because of where it's positioned in my full-sized house. So the doll's house sits on a piano and that staircase needs to kind of go off the edge of the piano. If it was on the other side, it would hit the side of my other doll's house that I've not started renovating yet. So I started to do some planning, which you can see on the screen, and there had been lots of suggestions to have both floors as one person's house. So I decided I'd already taken the staircases out and I wanted something that was very modern and was a complete contrast to my Tudor doll's house. So I've had a little think and I think I'm going to have a mezzanine floor. So at the moment I've just drawn a bathroom onto there, but actually I might be splitting that into a bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. And I considered having a spiral staircase, and then I thought, what other staircases could I have? Because that staircase I think would take actually quite a bit of space on the floor downstairs, and I want to be able to fit something underneath the staircase. So then I thought about maybe a floating staircase like this with a little landing where I could maybe put a plant or a bookshelf. And then the stairs would continue to the bottom floor, which means that I've now got some space that I can use underneath the staircase. You might have noticed that where I've put the mezzanine level, I've actually moved the floor up slightly from where it originally was. The reason for this is because the doors inside the 2 apartments, if they were individual apartments, were actually touching the ceilings above, so the scale didn't look quite right to me. So what I'm going to do is move that floor up slightly. It does mean that the space between the mezzanine level and the ceiling will be slightly less, but if it's just got a bedroom in there and a bathroom, I think that'll be okay, and it means I can have a slightly higher ceiling for the living space below. Of course, the staircase does mean that there's quite a bit of wasted space above it, where a room could be, but I quite like the fact that it's quite a statement staircase, and I'm thinking of maybe having a big light hanging in that space, or a piece of artwork on the wall, or I could have some shelves with books on them. So there are things that I would like to do with that area. So my plan is to have a little kitchen underneath the staircase here. Of course, I am going to have to do a little bit of measuring to work out what I will be able to fit in each area, because the kitchen might need a little oven in it and a sink, and I need to think about the scale of each of those things. So my doll's house is 12th scale. I do tend to make miniatures just by guessing their size. I'm not that accurate. I always think if it looks correct, then that's good for me. So in the downstairs area, I am still thinking about the art gallery space. So obviously I'd spoken in my last videos about having pillars in there because I have already removed a wall and I want to add a little bit of strength. In the lounge area, I'm thinking of having a wall that's got storage in it and also a space to put the television. And if it's got some shelves, it means that I could make some miniatures to go onto the shelves, which is really nice. And a little sofa. Now, if I don't do the bedroom on the mezzanine floor, this sofa will have to be a sofa bed. I do like the idea of designing a miniature sofa bed that actually does work and does pull out, but at the same time, it would be nice to have a full bedroom in this doll's house apartment. So I'll maybe have a little coffee table, a plant on the landing, my light hanging down, and maybe a matching one in the living room. And other things that I'm thinking about are I need a coat peg, maybe a little shoe basket. I've not got any clothes storage, but obviously that might be something to consider when I work out whether I'm doing the bedroom on the mezzanine. A rug, kitchen shelves with jars, bookshelf, I'd like some artwork up, a basket maybe for pillows and a duvet if it is a sofa bed in the living room. I need to decide whether I want a carpet or a wooden floor, and obviously what sort of flooring I'd have in the bathroom space. So, in order for this plan to work, I need to take out all of these walls and floors. So this is a good point to say, please don't copy anything that I do in my video. I'm not an expert and it's not a tutorial, it's just a diary entry to show you what I've been doing, and I don't know the safest way to do things. Please do not copy me. So I started by taking this little wall out, or trying to. If anyone has any advice on the safest way to take walls out of dolls' houses, I would really like to know, so please leave it in the comments. I was being really careful not to touch any edges that looked like they might be sharp or rough because I didn't want to get any splinters, didn't want to hurt myself. These floors aren't actually stuck with any glue. It seems as if they slot together a bit like a jigsaw. So I felt like maybe once I'd removed one part of this structure, the other three pieces would come away quite easily. I didn't expect that this piece of wood would rip in half, oh well, 3/4, but it was quite thin wood, and as you can see, it was almost had a cardboardy texture to it. And then this piece just sort of lifted away because it was fitted with little sort of tabs on each side that fit into holes that were keeping it in place. After seeing how this doll's house has been put together like a jigsaw, I do feel a lot more confident now that the bottom floor, where the art gallery is going to be, has a ceiling that is quite strong and in place, because I was concerned and thinking that the pillars were needed to hold that ceiling up, but actually I think that it's strong without the pillars. I will still put the pillars in because I quite like the idea. So when I removed this floor, obviously this was the area where I had filled the gap, so I'd also spent quite a lot of time trying to remove the carpets, which I didn't need to do because I've now just removed the pieces of wood anyway. I'm glad that there's no glue on the walls because it means that they're quite smooth, but there obviously are the little holes where the tabs of each floor have fit in, so I'm going to have to fill them. This floor felt like it was quite tightly in place. I was hoping that once I'd removed one floor that the others would come out easily, but I was struggling to get this wall out, and it was holding that floor in really securely. So as you can see, as I just kind of pull the wall out a little bit, this floor does then unclip and it comes out in one piece. So you can see here the little tabs that are on the side. So I think it's got 6 tabs in total that were holding it in place. So these little bits here slot into little holes that are in the side of the doll's house. And the same is the case for this piece of wall, where it's got some tabs at the bottom holding it into the floor and at the top holding it into the ceiling. But because it fits so well, I can't kind of lift those tabs out. And at the top here, where the ceiling is, there's no glue, but the paint's holding it in place quite well. So as I say, please don't copy me, because I don't think this was the safest way to do it, because each time the wood broke a little bit, obviously it meant that I didn't know where the edges were going to be rough. So I was being as careful as I could be. But yeah, if you've got any recommendations of how I could have got this wall out more safely, please do let me know. So when it did come away, I managed to lift it out from the bottom really easily, so those little bits just unclipped. But you might notice that in the ceiling, the little tabs were still in place. So they'd come off this wall and stayed in the ceiling. I was hoping that I'd be able to just pull them out, but I think the paint was just acting a bit like glue and it held them in place there. I couldn't really get a grip on these to pull them out, so I decided to go and get my pliers, and as you can see, as I tried to pull these out, the ceiling actually started to pull down as well. So I don't know if the ceiling is clipped in place like the other floors in the doll's house, where I am assuming that it is. But yeah, these were pretty tricky to get out. Little fibres from the wood were coming away as I pulled, because the wood is very much like cardboard. So I did manage to pull some bits off, but I wanted a nice smooth ceiling. So eventually I turned this on its side. Eventually I did manage to pull those full tabs out, which meant that I then had some holes to fill in the ceiling. In the floor that remains, it has a bit of carpet and landing like this. So I had a look at the floor that I'd taken out to see how easy this was to remove, but it was stuck down really securely. So I'm assuming that the floor that remains in the doll's house, the little bit of landing on there will be stuck down equally as well. So I am going to leave it there, which means that when I do create the interior for my doll's house, I will have to build something around here, because it's the area that I was going to originally have as the kitchen, but because I'm now going to move the kitchen to the left hand side, I'll have to think of something new to put there. Any ideas? Please leave them in the comments. So now it was time to fill any holes that were in the walls, and there were quite a few because of where the tabs were clipping in. So I just used some filler that you would use in your full-size house walls. I keep this in a little tub just because I'd emptied it out of the box. I'd used loads of this on my Tudor doll's house when I made the brickwork and when I did the stone floor, and lots of other things. So do go and have a look at my playlist there if you're interested in seeing my Tudor doll's house. I obviously don't have the instructions anymore for the use of this polyfiller, so I was just mixing it up to a texture that I felt like it was right. I don't know if there were any warnings on the box that said anything, so I can't give you any safety advice about using filler. If you're using filler, just make sure that you read the instructions, because maybe all fillers might be different. So I filled all of the holes that I could find. This doll's house is a lot easier to move than my Tudor doll's house. It's a lot lighter. I can't pick up my Tudor doll's house myself. I need help to do that. So it does mean that I've not worked that much on the loft rooms, because they're accessed from the back of my Tudor doll's house, which is a real shame, but I can't access them very easily because they're up against the wall. This is the floor, the ceiling of the art gallery and the floor of the apartment space. So I filled in these bits, but I will be putting some flooring over the top, and you can see the landing there that I can't remove. So the floor here actually isn't quite flat, so it's almost got a bit of a raised edge between these two sections of flooring where I'm filling, but I'll have to try and work out what to do there when I add some flooring. it might help me to decide whether to use carpet or wooden flooring. I also filled this edge here where I'd joined a piece of plywood to make a smooth ceiling for the gallery space, and there were some gaps here, so I filled these as well. When I turned my doll's house around, I accidentally knocked over the water that I'd used when I was mixing my filler, so thankfully the water didn't fall into my tub of filler because that would have ruined it. And thankfully it also didn't touch the doll's house because that might have started to remove the brick wallpaper off the doll's house, so I was very lucky. So after I'd cleared that up, I went back to filling these gaps. When I paint this edge, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it or how well it's going to work because I think it's been painted in a gloss, but we'll see when it comes to painting it. There's also an area here where a little doorstep was, so I filled this area too, but it's still quite rough, so I'm going to have to do something else to that bit. As I was leaving the filler to dry, I decided to make a start on making Sunday lunch because my family were coming round. I never know how many potatoes to do, but I love roast potatoes. They never go to waste. Don't worry, I'm not going to fill the rest of my videos with cooking. This certainly isn't going to turn into a cooking channel. I'm not the best cook and I'm definitely not good at baking, so that won't be reaching this channel anytime soon. Any advice on how to cut a Swede would be appreciated because that Swede was really hard to cut. So I made a nice cheese sauce to make cauliflower cheese, and then once this filler had dried, I went back and sanded it. And I vacuumed the dust away. And my plan then was to paint this all white. So I went to my garage to see what paint I had. This was the closest one to white that I had. It's got a slight grey turn to it, but it was alright. I thought that it would work quite well. And I also picked up some wood from the garage whilst I was down here because I'm taking part in a painting challenge at the moment where I'm trying to paint a picture every day or every weekday for the next 3 weeks. So I needed some board to attach my canvas to. But as you can see, there is no paint on this doll's house. And that is because when I opened that paint, it did not look very nice. And I'm not going to say any more than that. I've not included the footage because I want this to be a nice video. But I don't know if the lid had been open a little bit and let some air in, but that paint could not be used. So I decided to put my doll's house back on the piano. I will have to get some white paint, and in the next video I'll paint it and add the mezzanine floor. And now it was time to tidy everything away, make sure everything was nice and clean, ready for my Sunday lunch. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I hope that you like my plans for what I'm going to do with my doll's house. Please do let me know in the comments because, as you know, I always love to hear from everybody. If you are new to my channel, please do hit subscribe and follow along with the playlist, and I'd love it if you left a comment because I read them all and I try to reply to everybody. So thank you so much for watching today. Thanks to everybody that's been following along with all of my videos, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, by the way, I'll probably be posting some videos in between now and Wednesday. So my doll's house videos I put up on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and I do put some others in between occasionally, and the ones that are going to be put up in between at the moment will be linked to the painting challenge that I'm doing at the moment. So I mentioned it a bit earlier on in my video. So the challenge is being run by an artist over on Instagram who's an amazing painter, and she set some themes for the next 3 weeks, and the challenge is to paint every day, every weekday for the next 3 weeks. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and I will document it in some videos, so keep an eye out because there might be some in between. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a lovely afternoon or evening or morning or whatever time of day it is, and I hope to see you next time.